Good evening, family. What's happening? What's happening? Welcome, 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 man. We're going to have a great conversation tonight. It's all about fathers' engagement in their children's education month. And we are pumped up and charged up because during the month of September, the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative, along with other organizations, will be emphasizing the importance of fathers being involved in the academic lives of their children. This is especially true during these times of virtual learning platforms, hybrid systems, and education, children learning on the computers and whatnot, and fathers being there. It's really important that we be there. And for us to be able to do this for a month, why not a year? But we're going to emphasize on this month, and it's going to be very exciting, man. I got one of my good friends, and he is the director of the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative, Mr. Grimes, man, who is responsible for developing, and putting together, managing the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative. I'm talking about putting $15 million for the fatherhood activities, programs, special events. Throughout the state, the county. Getting federal funding. He is a father. He is a brother, man, to so many. And we want to walk with him and bring him on to the show. My friend, brother, doctor. Can I say doctor? Director? Can we do that?
Thanks, Sam. Hey, and I'm glad to be back on with 93 FM. We have really formed a very close relationship over the last 15 years between Radio 1 and WZAK and the Fatherhood Initiative. So we're always pleased to have another engagement or event with you. And the topic we're talking about today is more critical than ever. As you started out in the introduction, with the different hybrid learning of systems today, and the protective safety measures that children have to go through at school, it is important that both the custodial and the non-custodial, the parental and the maternal side of the family, are engaged in this process. We ordinarily, and education is always on our radar, we ordinarily focus on our Fathers Walk to School program in September. That's going to be virtual this year, but the theme stays the same. We want dads involved in education lives of their children. And the reason we do it in that September is because we want them to start getting involved in September and to continue being involved throughout the school year. So that's why I kind of designated this month. So because we're not having a Father's Walk, we still want to keep education at the forefront of dads being involved with their kids.
And Al, this is a lot different the way we're teaching now, from bringing up your daughters and whatnot, and I call it back in the day the old school division, the old school algebra, and being involved. So very, very important, man. And big ups on you, man. Again, you're an example. Your daughters went on to college, the graduates here, man, and I know you're a proud father. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Oh man, I am been very, very blessed. I've got two daughters, man, who the heart and soul of everything that I do. And fortunately, both of them, have advanced college degrees. Both have my master's degrees. My youngest daughter is now in medical school. So, I like to think that me being involved in their lives had a little bit to do with it along the way. So, I know that we don't do anything for necessarily rewards we get, but they do come. I tell dads all the time, if you are involved, the rewards will come later. And you will feel very good about it. But back to the topic today, I've got several people that are going to be on the panel with me today, and all of these guys are committed. Not only they're committed to children and dads, but they're also dads themselves. So they know, the importance and the essence of dads being involved, not only in the children's school life, but in their life overall. Research says that when dads are involved, kids are less likely to drop out of school, less likely to do drugs, less likely to go to jail, less likely to become teen parents. All the research says when dads are involved, children live a more positive and productive life. And that, bottom line, there's no argument about that. And this is not, you know, an anti-mom thing. This is a pro-family thing. This is about both parents being engaged, whether you're living in the same house of your children or not. So I want to bring the panel. I want to bring the rest of the panel on, and I'm going to introduce them. And I'm going to start with George Golden.
George.
Hey, George. Now, George is the director of the Closing the Achievement Gap for the Cleveland Municipal School District. George has been involved in this work for just about his whole career, starting with working with Upward Bound and working with teenagers to now working directly in CMSD. You know, I'm going to say one thing up front. I like these other three guys, but I love this. All right. And the reason I love him is he happens to be my first cousin. Him and I were born 2 weeks apart at the same hospital. His father and my mother have any brothers and sisters. So I know what kind of cloth he's been cut from the very start. And you'll find out from tonight's conversation, you know, how knowledgeable he is about working with kids and families. And the second person that is going to be on the panel is Kenneth Hale. Kenneth is the director of community relations at Cuyahoga Community College. We were talking prior to the start of the show, and Kenneth said, listen, I've had children in the school system for 28 years. Yeah. So, you know, he's been intimately involved from an administrative point of view and from a father's point of view. And he's going to share some of those experiences and talk about some of the things, the unique things that Tri-C's doing, but more than anything else, cover these specific topics that we're talking about. By the way, Kenneth at one point in time was a high school principal as well. So he's well versed from the school side of things as well as the family side of things.
Thanks for the invitation, Al. Hey, gentlemen.
All right. The next panelist is Maurice Stevens. Maurice is the executive director and CEO of Career Development and Placement Strategies. So he's helped thousands of guys through one of my fatherhood programs find jobs over the years. But one thing that we've always said in his program, you know, if the only thing we've done is find you a job, we haven't completely done our job, because along with finding you a job, we want to make you a better dad. So he can speak from that perspective. In addition to that, Maurice has a unique story, and that, you know, he's had a mixture of experiences, you know, with his own children. You know, one child happened to have some disabilities. The other child has all helped in. They've all pitched in to make sure that they've taken care of their brother that's had some challenges. But in addition, his kids have gone on to be very successful, including one daughter who's a physician. So Maurice is going to have some unique perspective on the things that we're talking about tonight. And the last panelist is Stephen Rhodes. And Steve is the director of fatherhood engagement for the Council of Economic Opportunities of Greater Cleveland. And all of you guys might know that from CEOCG. You know, what's unique about Steve is he's working with dads and children in preschool. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with it or not, but it's very rare to see males involved in that climate, if you will. You know, it seems to be a female-dominated work atmosphere. So for a male to be immersed in that and given perspectives from the male point of view and the father's point of view is really a unique way of looking at things. So as a group, you know, we're going to cover a number of different topics. We will answer the questions that you have. And at the end of the day, you know, for any dads that might be tuning in or anybody else, we at the end of the day want to make sure that, you know, it's all about the kids. Yep. At the end of the day, what can we do collectively to make sure that our children can live up to their maximum potential? So, you know, with that as an introduction, Sam, let's get going on the first topic we talked about.
Let's dive in it, man. The importance of fathers being involved when it comes to academics with their kids. That is very important. So who want to go first? Let's go to George first. The importance of fathers being involved when it comes to academics.
Well, Al hit it right, the nail right on the head when he talked about the results of a father being positively involved in their child's life, as it relates to that individual earning better grades. I mean, my experience, I've been working in the CMSD for like the last 14 years. We have worked primarily initially with guys. We brought on a female component these last 2 years. But I can tell you some of the individuals that we started with about 14, 15 years ago are now educators themselves and that sort of thing. And the experiences that I can talk about are the fathers who were involved in some of their lives, and their grades were better. You know, they were less likely to repeat a grade level. Um, their suspension and expulsion percentages were very much lower than other students whose parents were not that involved. Most of them went on to college or got some stable jobs right after high school. And the low percentage of them spending time in jail was, comparable to what Al was talking about. So it's he confirmed it. And I can, with truth indicate that fathers who are positively involved in their kids' lives, their intellect is going to be higher. They're going to have a lot more confidence. Child is going to feel a lot better about themselves, and they're going to feel the love.
Yeah. I like what you mentioned about the love part as well. Being able to, to hear a father say, "I love you, son. I love you, daughter." They hear those words. They hear from moms, but to hear from dad is really, is powerful, strong. You know what I mean? You guys agree?
All right, yeah, I totally agree. And the fact of the matter is, Sam, the kids go to school for the fathers involved in school are there for two reasons. They're there to make sure that the kids are doing what they're supposed to do, and they're there to make sure that the schools are doing what they're supposed to do. You get moms and dads engaged, your child is going to get the attention that they deserve, because they're going to know, hey, if we had an agreement, at the beginning of the school year that my child was going to do X, Y, Z, don't come back 6 weeks later and tell me they didn't do it. Why didn't you call me in the meantime? And so, the more active you are, the more engaged in parent-teacher conferences, the more attention that your child is going to get. And I think you guys will agree with that. One of the things we find that, during our Father's Walk to School Day, the principals and the teachers say that's the best behaved day of the year.
You know why?
You know what I'm talking about? So yeah, Mo, you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I'll just say that, from my personal perspective, it's important for parents to be involved with all of the children. But again, you explained to the group that I have somewhat of a unique situation in that, from a child with disabilities perspective, it's important that both parents are involved in that process as well. You talk about getting IEPs and things of that nature, individual experience plans, and knowing that both parents are involved in the process, it helps with the development of that child. And so, yeah, all the way around, it's important that parents are involved in the school system. But just from my own personal perspective, I just want to kind of emphasize that with the children with disabilities, man, it's really important, man, that whether you're custodial or non-custodial is not really the issue. The issue is that you have involvement with the kids' lives, man, because their learning is directly impacted by your involvement in that process.
And I want to kind of bring the next question in. How do we get more involved? Because you can hear some say, "Well, I may not be getting along with the mother, or my work schedule." Let's talk about getting more fathers involved. How do we do that? Who may be having a dispute or a custody battle, or these different things of nature.
Yeah, I think on that issue, if there are some turmoil within the relationship between the mother and father, if they really cannot get to a point where they can satisfactorily agree upon how they're going to impact the kids, there needs to be some mediation involved in the process. You know, they need to seek some sort of support. And I know that, you know, at a certain point, we had an Office of Mediation here in Cuyahoga County that will help folks kind of resolve some of their issues so they can get to a point where they're actually on the same level in terms of getting involved with your child's life. I think that's one way that you can get both parents involved in the process.
The other thing, Sam, is that, you know, you got to know what your rights are. And in the state of Ohio, if you're unmarried, mom automatically gets custody, but then the father goes to juvenile court and gets equal custody and visitation rights. So they're equal parents. They both have access to school records. They both have access to medical records. You know what you have to do. And when you do that, you know, then you know, legally you're on equal standing, and you have just as much power to be involved. You know, the other thing about the increase in fathers, letting them know, you know, how important it is to be involved in academics. When I go to schools and I see dad, you know, I say, hey, you know, I'm not impressed with the new Jordans you bought. I'm impressed if you tell me what your kid got on his last science test.
Yeah.
You know, tell me when the parent teacher conference was. You know, then I know, you know, you're involved in. So, you know what the priorities are. Yes, you need to you need to provide for kids financially, but you also need to be there for them emotionally as well. And you know, finally, you know, when people ask some of those questions, and you'll hear me say this all along, you know, how deep is your love for your kids? Is your love deep enough to show up for the plays? Is your love deep enough to go to parent-teacher conference in spite of some objections? You know, we're going to always have objections. We're going to always have stuff thrown at us. But, you know, how resolute are we going to be in making sure there that you got that you have a strong relationship with your children? And you know, doing the right thing and filing the right paperwork, you know, you're on equal ground. Let's not use anything as an excuse to be a.
Yeah, I think the schools also, and if you guys don't mind me saying, I think the schools also can play a role in getting the father and the mother involved, but particularly a father. You know, when a teacher sees that a student is falling behind or is not performing in terms of the expectations of the class, then the teachers could reach out, you know, to the father and say, hey, you know, I've noticed that, you know, your student or Sally or Maurice or whatever the student's name is not really performing up to expectation or to his full capacity. I'm wondering if you guys can, you know, set some time aside to come on in, have a conversation with me. Maurice can be involved with the conversation just so that we can kind of see what we can do to get him back on track. So it's a kind of a two-way street.
Yeah.
And you know, in the Cleveland district, we have a student support panel that's comprised of the teachers, social workers, and their job is to deal with those kind of issues, bringing the parents to the table or significant others in the family to the table and addressing whatever problems that particular student may be having. Where we run into difficulty sometimes is the information that we have on file to contact them is not the most up-to-date information. So, you know, we kind of spin our wheels in reference to getting in touch with folks and letting them know, listen, we need you to get in here and have a sit down so we can get down to the bottom of this.
Right. Yeah.
And let me just add this, extending what George was just saying. And I want to thank everybody for being here and organizing this, and to say how timely it is. It's still being September. Basically the school years are just starting up. This is the time that men and all parents, but particularly men, need to be intentional about investing in their children's lives. It's critically important. So that intention is the first step, regardless of what's going on with mom or who else ever. The intent is to be the best dad you can be to support your son or daughter's success. And that starts like the starting line is right here. So this is the ideal time to be having this discussion. But to I think Al's point earlier, and even Joy, it's a partnership. It's a partnership between the school officials, principal and teachers, the child, and the parents. And dads, we're parents. Like Al said, we're on equal footing. Like we have the energy and enthusiasm to be cheering at a football game, basketball game, baseball game, whatever. We need to be investing that same type energy and passion in the lives of our children.
I agree with you, Kenneth. If I could chime in,
Please, Steve.
I totally agree with you. You mentioned the word intentional. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Yes.
You took it in. You spent it in regards to the fathers being intentional, but coming from the Head Start standpoint, and like I said earlier, working with primarily women's staff, our management team here at COGC Head Start has been intentional about setting up fatherhood programs. And one of the things mentioned earlier is having a balance. So over the last 5 years, we had a strong fatherhood program with the 24/7 dad fatherhood curriculum. But I often got a lot of comments from fathers and mothers in regards to what are we doing for the mothers. So we're going to implement the Understanding Dads motherhood curriculum this school year to create a balance. And at the end, we will try to have a culminating activity where the fathers and the mothers come together and have like a joint graduation or ceremony in regards to that. But I totally agree. The school have to be intentional in regards to making sure that father engagement is a priority for them.
Yeah.
And that's an important point I just want to emphasize. You said, Stephen, because a kid come into this world by two.
That's right.
And so they need that balance. So mom and dad, again, whether they're married, are still dating,
Yes,
or don't have anything to do with each other, the kid needs that balance. So it is the support of both that's going to ultimately give that kid the best chance to be his or her best self.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right. And then, we also talking about, we like to say phrases like it takes a village to raise a child, right? Well, the village can consist of the paternal side of the family and the maternal side, and if they're just getting one side of the family based upon some selfish interest of one or the other, you've cut the village in half. You see what I'm saying? Would you rather have your child have, I've said this before, 2 grandparents or 4? 6 uncles or 12. When both sides of the family are involved, the village is larger. So when you say it takes a village, do you truly want the village to be all inclusive, or do you just want the village to be your people? We know we all got bad apples on all sides. So let's make sure that what we're saying is something that we're intentional about making happen. And finally, on that subject, Kent, I just wanted to say, and we got to be realistic and honest with people. And you know what? And let them know, man, some things you don't get to do over. Like when your kid is in that play in the first grade, and you miss it, it's gone. You don't get to go back and recreate that. The first football game. You don't show up at the first football game, and in Pee Wee League. And you say, "Oh, I'll catch up with it later." No, you won't.
No.
It's gone. And we've got to be honest with people about life. Time goes so quickly.
It does. And now, just to add on to that, and I'm over. We're fine now. But my father never saw me play baseball. We never come to any game. That used to hurt. You know what I mean? So I made sure that I'm at Little Sam's game. I'm at Jeremiah's game. Because when a kid looks out, whether it's at a spelling bee, whether it's at you're playing softball, baseball, you in the play, and you look out and you see mom and dad out there.
Right.
And really when you see your dad, like, oh man, my dad came, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That really builds the child confidence to know that you're there. So going to plays and ball games and showing up to spelling bees, man, that means a lot. That means a lot to the child.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does.
Question.
Yeah.
The school system that my kids grew up in the Stowe school system, I think that they were pretty good in terms of having, different events, parent-teacher conferences and, school dances for the fathers and the daughters and all that kind of stuff, And, I was really, it took me a little bit. I had to grow into fatherhood, And but when I grew into it really strong. And, being a part of those events at my kids' schools really helped me to bond with them in a very strong way. So I would just say that, if the father has an opportunity, to go to the events and you don't take advantage of it, man, to Al's point, I guess I'm just piggybacking on what Al said. You'll miss some things that you just can never get back again, So I applaud you saying that, Al.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, Sam, we were talking about, and we'll just morph into that other thing, what can schools do to get more dads involved? And I think Steve was talking about there's some, there's some things that schools can do too to make it easier. In some schools, all the same information that the mother gets, if it's a single parent household, all the information that the mother gets in terms of grades, assignments, and those kind of things, the dad gets. And if we can make sure that, based on in cases where there's no legal issues or anything, make sure that both parents get the same information.
Yeah.
And make sure that we have opportunities for dads who want to volunteer. We have a Father's Walk. Our Father's Walk every year. We have 206 schools and about 20,000 dads that are volunteering. And then the schools will come back to me and say, "Well, Al, how can we get dads involved?" Well, I'll say, "Look, if I could get 20,000 dads to come to school in one day, right? Why can't you guys? There's something missing there, right? Take the fathers when they do show up, and sign them up to volunteer. You know how men are sometimes. Hey, sign us up for something. We're going to do it, and we're going to take ownership of it, right? From now on, that's my job. Don't touch my job." Yeah. But sometimes we have to be creative with parents in general about how we get them to get involved in the schools. So, schools have some issues with family engagement too that they can work on as well.
Yeah, and make it feel more friendly for fathers.
That's my point.
And even with, like we have career day. I get it. We call out to different places, banks and whatnot. And but why not ask one of the parents, one of the fathers to come in that day to be the guest speaker? Where we can start that type of engagement, where, get to know Jeremiah's father, get to know Stephen's father. I think that's a way that we can, kick off some engagement. You know what I mean? In a relationship.
Going back to what Al said too, and still mentioning about being intentional. Like I said, the Father's Walk is a optimal time to engage with those fathers. Like you said, you're going to have anywhere between, depending on your school setting, 10 to 100 fathers coming to your school or beyond that day. That is a good beginning for you. From that point on, COGC, we offer the dads to volunteer to be a part of the fatherhood program, but we have a next event planned, and that's our annual Father Engagement Pancake Breakfast. Fathers who attend that between October and November then are invited again to be a part of the 24/7 Dad Fatherhood program. So you got to be really intentional about engaging those dads.
Yeah. And one of the questions here we want to talk about, especially during this pandemic, how important it is that both parents are engaged in this virtual school, virtual learning. Let's kind of talk about that, because this is something that none of us never seen before. None of us. Yeah. This is really important.
Right. Well, I think, we've seen the tip of the iceberg and what is, what it's going to take, because we were talking a couple of days ago about some of the issues of remote learning and what the challenges is that's going to be on both sides. First of all, it's really basic to, like, for example, all children that are learning remotely have to have equipment. They've got to have a laptop, or they've got to have an iPad. It's as simple as knowing, what, even as basic as everybody knowing what the first day of school is. because every 31 districts in Cleveland all got different starting days for school. The second thing is knowing when your child has to pick up his or her laptop or computer, making sure that's on the calendar. All right. So we know in order for Johnny to be able to learn, he's got to get his equipment. And so both parents need to know that, because the rules have changed. The rules of engagement have changed. And I'll say one more thing before I let other folks off. We're now having to duplicate the same learning environment that children had in schools at home. See, so as opposed to sitting at a desk at Miles Elementary School, you're sitting at the kitchen table or someplace else at home. So you got to make sure, and this is critical, that learning environment in your house is conducive to kids learning, and that in itself is a huge endeavor, because parents aren't used to children having to learn at home. Generally, hey, go to school. I see you when school's out. Let them take care of it.
So
now that's taking place in the house, and I'll turn it over to the rest of the folks to comment on that.
Yep.
So Al, I can't have my Family Feud playing.
No. See what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about.
Well, the other piece of that is if the house is not structured and organized and clean, right, that could really distract from the learning process. So, parents, both mother and father, if father's not in the house, the mom will need to kind of put a little extra work in to make sure that the house is cleaned and organized and structured in a way so that, folks feel comfortable in going to school and learning in that environment, because a cluttered house sometimes can cause all kinds of distractions.
And another thing is that is a real challenge, because especially when you have multiple students at different grade levels. That requires the development of a consistent daily routine, and how these students are going to engage their particular teachers, and you got to set some realistic expectations, because the little ones are going to only have their attention spans a lot shorter. So you're going to have to be on top of them to stay in front of the computer for this amount of time, and then give them a little time to kind of chill. The older students, same way, they're just chilling in a different, capacity. They may switch over to some kind of game or something of that nature, but then you got to help them and get them right back on track. So it's really important in this learning environment for parents and the teachers to strive and assist the students in developing a consistent daily routine if anybody is going to be successful in this current learning environment.
Yeah, but you got the whole issue of some parents don't have the luxury and cannot afford to stay at home. Yeah. And tutor the kids and facilitate the process of them learning, because now they've been off of work for a while. They had an opportunity to go back to work, and they're trying to juggle and finagle. How am I going to, get somebody to come over here, or how am I going to, put restrictions down on the kids to do what they're supposed to do when I'm gone? I mean, that's a whole nother issue, but it's a real issue as well.
Understood.
And that's what I'm saying with this whole thing of collaboration, and both parents have to work together, and the family as a whole working together, to be engaged in this process. One of the questions that I asked the schools, they were given, laptops and iPads to children, and making sure that, they have that material when they're at the mom's house. Maybe making sure that material is available when they're at the dad's house on the weekend, or whatever type of custodial situation that they have set up, and making sure that or hey, Sometimes they might be at Big Mama's house. And so maybe Big Mama needs to come into the conversation about structured learning environment. See, because everybody that was, absent for what was going on in the schoolroom needs to be up to date on this new way of learning.
Yeah.
Let me echo what Al, you mentioned earlier, that the village, and you compared it with if you got two parents, you're going to have maybe 4 grandparents instead of 2. You have 16 uncles and aunts instead of 8. So then we have to start looking at that village and going back to being intentional, and everybody has to be more organized. And one of my mentors from years ago said, Cam, we got to be organized for effectiveness. So it takes a lot of intent early on. Again, we're still in September. Grades haven't come out yet, so we still got time to kind of set up shop and organize and create that structure the best we can. Even if that means we have a couple of kids in a house, we try to have everybody kind of set up in their own place, try to keep it quiet. I would even say, for me, I've had to have the bell schedule handy for me so I can remind my kids, it's time for you to be at this class right now. This is not break time. So I've had to become more organized for effectiveness myself. And really, you look at it, we're the administration now. If your kids are learning from home, you are the principal, or you are the teacher's aide.
Who you gonna call?
Security. You are the cafeteria. You're maintenance. You're everybody at home. And that's a big change, going back to what you all said earlier. This is uncharted territories. Mm-hmm. So we have to come together, have these discussions, share some great strategies, and be there for each other. And I would encourage people, reach out for help. If you need help, because many times, going back to that partnership with the schools, they may have some resources available or tips they can give you, or the church down the street, or your neighbor, that can come together and make this happen for the best interest of the child.
Yeah, and like I said, but we're still talking about making sure that we're having that structured learning environment at home. The other thing that we haven't talked about is safety, and how important it is for us to be making sure that our kids are safe. And questioning schools. What are your policies on the coronavirus now? Okay. Do all of the teachers have to have masks? Do all of everybody that comes into the school have to have masks? Is the maintenance guy wearing masks? I would want to know that if it's an in-person thing. Some schools are going to be still in person, or what kind of safety measures do I need to implement, and do I need to enforce in my children, let my children know about this coronavirus? We're not all at the same learning level when it comes to this coronavirus. Some of us have different understandings of exactly what it is. What should we be doing, and what are we telling our what are we telling our kids? Hey, it's probably not the best time to hang around with 20 or 30 kids on the block, like ordinarily. Let's reduce the opportunity for something to happen to you. And that's a whole nother issue as to why we need as many voices in kids' ears as we can have.
I agree with that.
Let me also emphasize another resources that is so vital to our children's education is libraries. Most communities' libraries have some type of programming going on right now. And that's a wonderful resource to kind of call and find out, what do they have, even though we're in this COVID era, what do they have available that can help my son or daughter in school? And that's just another free resource that might be able to be a solution for our children and their education.
Mm-hmm.
From a father's perspective, and again, I must reemphasize the fact that we do workforce development training over at Career Development and Placement Strategies. So that's sort of my perspective, okay? And what I've come to observe is that some fathers, man, their self-esteem is low because, they don't have the kind of employment they're looking for. They're underemployed or unemployed. And as a result, their self-esteem is low. And that results in them not doing some of the things that they know they should be doing because they just don't have the motivation to get out there and take care of responsibility. Right. And they call it this rut, man. They call it a rut of not, having the mindset to go out and do the right thing because their self-esteem is low. And, one of the things that we do, not only do we do workforce development, we do personal development, really helping a person to understand who they are. And that's part of the process of helping them to understand what they need to be going after in terms of opportunity for employment or entrepreneurship, whatever it is that they desire to do to earn revenue, to earn income, right? But the underlying factor to being successful in that process is to help them to really understand exactly where they are in their lives and actually where they are in terms of skill sets and so forth. To help them to understand what they should be going after based on where they are. And if they need to enhance their education, giving some referrals to do that as well. That's just the underlying factor that affects, the motivation level of some fathers. That's just my observation.
No, that's real. I mean, that's real. And that's why some of them cannot get to the point of where we're talking about saying you ought to do this, you ought to do that. You hit it on the head when they feel like I'm not necessarily worth this or I'm not worth it. They have their own insecurities and different life has beat them up. Yeah. They probably haven't, gotten to the point where you guys are, where we are to say, okay, you know what, we can make it. I heard you say earlier, Maurice, it took you, it was one day you was like, man, I'm really involved.
Right.
But something woke you up.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's real. You hit it on the head. I want to say something. I want to bring up Maria Kent. She says, can you all send fatherhood materials to the schools, especially during the virtual school year? Tips on ways fathers can be more involved in a virtual space. She said that's needed very, right now that's very needed.
Yeah, and I responded that I'll definitely send out materials from the Fatherhood Initiative, and from time to time you'll see our website scrolled across the bottom of the screen, and there'll be information on the website about some things to help you during this current environment as well.
Yeah. Feel free to leave your questions here, guys. If you want to join in on the conversation, we'd love to get your questions for the panel to discuss tonight. So feel free to post up right here so we can read your question and get some answers for you.
Mm-hmm. But I wanted to continue on in terms of being engaged. And Sam, you really hit on it. And I posed this question to a lot of folks, who say, look, I didn't have a role model. My dad wasn't involved in my child's life. And specific to what you said, you can have that happen to you, and you can take two roads. You can say, well, since my dad wasn't involved, I don't know if I got it. Or you can say what Sam said, because my dad wasn't involved, I am going to make sure that is not the same situation that my child grows up in. Yeah. That's where I'm starting. I'm starting at point A. What I'm going to do is make sure that my offspring is going to have somebody there. And the other thing is, power comes in a lot of different ways. You can contribute to your family and your children just with some of the information we've talked about, just being up to date on when school assignments are due and making sure that you're collaborating with the mother of your child if you're not living together. Hey, when's the homework assignment due? I thought it was due last week. When are we supposed to pick up the laptop, and when are we supposed to pick up the computers? What days of school are they out? When's the holidays? So I can make sure that I can give you some relief during the holidays if it's if the thing is things are too heavy on you.
School, pick them up.
And those things don't cost anything. Those are just being engaged. And like I said before, how deep is your love? I mean, parenting, trust me, and I think everybody, is not the easiest job in the world, even for the best of us. Right, Sam? Right, Dave? It takes work. It takes work. Now, if you think you're gonna be a good,
each child is different.
you got to put in the work,
Yeah.
to get the rewards.
Hey fellas, I wanted to chime in and throw a little caveat in there. A lot of times we talk about fathers being a part of the children's lives for the well-being of the children. But one thing I experienced facilitating fatherhood programs and working with fathers, just being a father myself, is that children being part of the father's life make the father's well-being better. So it gives us a purpose, like you guys said, and it gives us something to look forward to. I think a lot of times without those children at our knees and tugging on our ankles, we probably would give up in some cases or throw the towel in. So it helps children being a part of our life. And this is for the mothers and the women out there who are in conflict with fathers and things like that. It helps the men when the child is in our life. So it definitely helps the child, but it also helps the father become a better person.
It does. I wholeheartedly agree with that, man. 100%. I've seen it so many times and lived that life as well. So, that's part of that whole piece, me talking about, I had to grow into fatherhood.
Yes, sir.
But once I came on strong, but it was a result of those kids being a part of my life as well, Yeah. I got a short story to sort of complement what I shared with you about a man's self-esteem. So the workforce training that we do, and I'll make this as brief as possible. I had a guy come to me who was in prison for like 19 years. Okay. He was in prison for committing a high profile crime in Cleveland. And he actually shot a high profile political figure in Cleveland. When he got out, he came to me. And he came to me with a real rough attitude. He came to me like he was entitled for me to give him my time right away. So I gave him the time because when he confronted me actually in front of a class of about 12 students. When he came into the class, he sat down. We were doing an exercise to help people to better understand themselves. So we asked a question of him. We said, hey, listen, tell me something that you're really proud of. Tell me something that you feel good about. And understand this guy's just coming out of 19 years of prison on probation, on parole. And this parole officer saying, look, you better go to this program or else you coming back to jail. So he already mad, right? Asked him, what did he feel good about himself? You know what he said? He said, I feel good that I got my GED in prison. But the exercise that we went through, everybody in the classroom had to tell him what kind of skill he either used or developed as a result of getting that GED. Now, mind you, we got 12 people in here and we're listing all these skills on the board as they're telling us. By the time we were done, we got 2 easel papers full of skills that he had used. He was persistent. He was diligent. He had the ability to learn all these things. When he looked at those 2 easel pads, you know what he did? He busted out in tears. I mean, he cried like a baby. Now, mind you, this is a hard dude. And I asked the brother, I said, man, why are you crying? I mean, what's up? You came in here, really forceful and so forth, but now you're real soft. What's going on? He said, man, I wish my mama could have seen this, that I had these kind of skills. So if she would have seen this, man, I think I would have turned out to be a better person if I would have had the ability to demonstrate that to her. That's very compelling, okay? That a man will come in one strong attitude, but then break down to another whole different attitude based on some words that was shared with him by a group of people. So this group concept had a lot of play into him sort of softening up and getting to a point of thinking, what can I do to better myself? I just wanted to share that with the team.
That was powerful, Maurice. And I think that demonstrates a point that we need to be intentional about speaking life, speaking health, wellness, and good to others.
Right.
That gentleman had good in him, but he didn't realize it. And it took that scenario in your class and the 11 or 12 other classmates to kind of show him, yes, you have good in you, and put it on the chalkboard or easel. And we have to be very intentional about that, because people take these, a self-assessment. And as someone mentioned earlier, life can beat you down. It can beat you up for everybody. That's why it's so powerful to stay connected with somebody you trust, who you respect, who can be like a mentor or coach. And a lot of guys may not know about that piece. They think coaching is just for sports.
Mm-hmm.
But we need life coaches. We need
right.
brothers and sisters or brothers. We're talking brothers here. People we respect to kind of give us some counsel, because other people have been there and they would love to share what they did, so we won't have to go down that same pothole or something like that. So I want to emphasize that too. We just need to have more open discussions. We don't know it all, so we shouldn't be perpetrating like we do know it all. Right. But we should be open enough to kind of talk and communicate with somebody we respect and learn.
Al, can you address it? Do you guys have anything where sometimes the fathers can come together and talk?
Yes, I have one of my programs called Fathers and Families Together, and one of the components of that is fathers networking, and that's where dads just get together. It's not a class or anything, but it's just an opportunity to share experiences. What issues you've gone through, what some of your challenges are, and this is not about getting a job. It's not about a new dad. This is just conversation in general. And a lot of times, one of the advice that I would give to anyone is don't be afraid to ask for help. Mm-hmm. Humility is not something that to be frowned on. Humility is really a strength. When you recognize where you need help and reach out for help, that's a strength. And that's the way you're going to get better. And a lot of times we internalize a lot of stuff and we don't want to talk about it. And what I tell folks, we get 2,000 phone calls a year. Whatever issue you're dealing with, and Maurice, you guys can probably relate and be from your experience, there's not an issue out there that we haven't heard about, or we haven't dealt with, because, in this work, you're going to find out about, they say a million stories in the nicotine. You're going to find out stories all of the time. So my advice with dads would be, your story is not unique.
That's right.
So, ask for help. And if you need help in any of the programs, reach out to the programs. And, reach out yourself. Don't ask your mother to call. Pick up the phone.
That's right.
And I say that sometimes. I say that tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah.
But we all know we've been there.
No, that's right, man. That's right, Al. I agree with you 100%, because I get a lot of mothers and wives and girlfriends that call me for their man, right, or for their son, and they're starting to inquire about the program. But when I inquire about the reason that they're calling, they say, well, I'm calling for, my son, or I'm calling for my man, my boyfriend, he needs some work. And I say, well, really, I need to be talking to him. If you can just encourage him to reach out and give me a call, we'll probably get better results, okay, from this call, because the results that we will probably get from this is not what we're really going to be looking for, because you are pushing him to do something he may not be ready to do at this point, okay? Yeah. So I get that, man. I get that a lot. I always have to tell him, hey, man, don't call me for him. Tell him to call me, and let's see where we can go from there.
Yeah. We digressed a little bit, but that's some of the stuff. That's some of the stuff that we deal with every day. And hey, what comes into the Fatherhood Initiative and these programs stays in the Fatherhood Initiative. Nobody's gonna run tell anything. So
right.
And we wouldn't have been around for 15 years if it was anything different,
Right, man. We've been
Sam
around.
Sam wouldn't have me back on the show if that was.
Man, hey, we got to get it out there. I get the letters, I get the calls from the fathers, and I think I've passed so many on you. So hold on, let me give you Al's number. Give you Al's number. We want to give a shout out to Dominic, Vanessa Lewis, Wanda Stallworth, and Jennifer, Queen Jennifer. Al, your daughter's on here.
Yeah.
Hey, Don and Mo, some of those programs that you're talking about that you guys are promoting and operating, what do you think about? I got a staff of young men that are in the various Cleveland school districts. What's the possibility of operating some of those sessions right in those respective schools with fathers that were capable of recruiting from those particular schools?
That's a good question, and it's interesting because some of our programs are in one set location, but some of them are mobile, where we can bring the curriculum out to the school.
Okay.
Like our 24/7 day.
And we are one of them.
Yeah, and so we can, we can actually bring the curriculum and the program into your location.
Okay.
Well, from like the Prevent Premature Fatherhood from teens that we've worked with you before, some similar to that, but a lot of the programs are able to come into the facilities as well.
Okay. Well, once this madness has ceased and we're back to normalcy, I think that'd be a good project to try to move into with both your organizations.
I would agree. I would be more than open and flexible to between myself and my staff to get out there to accommodate the needs that are out there. I mean, because at the end of the day, man, sometimes you got to take the message to the people, man. Sometimes the people can't come get the message.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Likewise. I will be open to that as well. But
okay.
Just to dispel that myth that fathers or men aren't involved in their children's lives, from my experience, I haven't experienced that. I do know some men who are not active. Sorry for them, but for the most part, from my experience with engaging with fathers in the Head Start program and beyond, they're very interested and want to be a part of their children's lives. They have challenges, but they're eager and they're willing to fight the fight to be a part of it. So,
So, we're coming down toward the end, but I want to kind of get back to what the topic was. And if there are any parents, mothers, fathers, we know that in some areas, there's already that achievement gap between kids and the learning that they have. Let's make sure that during this uncertain time, where we got the virus, we got remote learning, we got these safety issues, that we do everything we can to make sure that our babies don't fall further behind.
Correct.
Because if we're not diligent right now, that can happen. And that's the whole purpose of this, emphasizing this engagement in education right now, because we're at a critical point, because a lot of this stuff is new to households, man.
Yeah.
If we don't jump on top of it and we don't do it right, our babies are going to fall further behind, and we can't afford that. We can't afford that. So anybody that's listening, if you need more information on what the Fatherhood Initiative does, or the CMSD with George, or Tri-C with Kenneth, or CEOC with Steve, or Career Development with Maurice, reach out to us. Reach out to us for the benefit of the kids.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Got closing remarks. Let's start with Stephen.
I want to thank you for the invitation, Al. I thoroughly enjoyed it, fellas. I'm looking forward to doing this again, whether we live or where we at your house, Al. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm a father of two. Fatherhood have definitely changed my life, and working with the father of COUC has definitely been a blessing for me. I often tell them when I facilitate those classes, I learn more from you guys than I can ever teach you. So I just want to thank you for the invitation, Al.
All right, Brother Maurice.
Again, thanks. I did all what Stephen says. I really appreciate this opportunity to sit up here and fellowship with all of you guys. And I just reach out to the community and say, hey, listen, reach out to us at Career Development and Placement Strategies. I know that we've had a few website issues that we're kind of getting together here, but the website address is CDPS4, and my email address is careercounsel@sbcglobal.net. And I open up my office. I open up my time to anyone who needs my help.
All right. Kenneth.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Sam, and thank you, Al, for the invitation. Man, I enjoyed the fellowship as well, engaging in this conversation. I just want to emphasize that fathers matter. We hear that on the radio from Al Grimes all the time, and that's
All
true.
the time.
And we don't want men not to feel marginalized in any way. You matter, and we want all men to be intentional about being there to support their children's success. And the village is here. Reach out if you need help. It's quite possible there's some people with solutions that can help you if you pick up the phone and make it happen like that. But also, I want to emphasize, look at history and culture. I think as a people, we need to embrace and learn more about our history and culture, the 400-year journey on this continent. And even before then, we can gain a lot of fuel and strength and determination and inspiration by knowing our history. Thank you very much.
All right, Brother George.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Al, Sam, 93 for providing this platform for us sharing this information. And I'd like to also indicate that in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, you know, our staff is in a variety of different high schools, K-8 buildings, and we will be more than happy to assist any parents, fathers, mothers, what have you, in this virtual learning situation. The program is called Closing the Achievement Gap. It's more fondly known around the district as CTAG. And we got young men and young ladies who are in these buildings working with your children from kindergarten right on to the 12th grade that are willing to assist you in any way possible to help you get through this virtual experience and get you back to a normal learning environment. But we're there for you. Feel free to reach out. We'll be there to help you.
And before we go, Brother Al Grimes, we want you guys to please share this video. Share this video to some fathers, to some mothers. Make sure you guys do that. In closing words here from my brother Al Grimes.
Well, once again, I want to thank Sam. You know, we've been partners in this journey for a long time, and I look forward to us continuing to work together for the benefit of the families in the community. My parting thought would be, you know what, pick up the phone and call. You know, if you have questions, we probably got some solutions. So if you need some help, you know, call us. And then the last comment would be, you know, stay involved for the benefit of your children. You know, whether you guys are living in a two-party household, where you're married, whether you're unmarried, make sure that both the mom and the dad are consistently involved in the children's life so that they can live a more positive and productive life. And with that, thanks to all of the folks who came on and helped with this event today. This show wouldn't have been anything without the combination of everybody participating. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful evening, everybody, for joining us.
Take care now. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.